Yell, Fight, Sooie, college football from three friendly-ish rivals.
Good morning and welcome to the October 14th edition of Yell, Fight, Sooie. I'm Andy Tomchesson, your host today and proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1993. I'm bringing you all the hot takes on their teams. Our Scott McIntyre, dyed-in-the-wool Razorback fanatic, and my friend and yours, James Christopher, an always proud but all of a sudden super happy for some reason graduate of the University of Texas.
Class of 07, because I was old when I went to college.
There you go. Yeah, but you also served your country, and there was a little bit of a detour. I mean, good on you.
Right.
So the week that was, gentlemen, let's just jump right into this. I don't want to go first for obvious reasons. So, Scott, we'll kick it to you because I think Jim's going to have the most to talk about in this segment. How was Mississippi State?
Starkville is always forgettable, but even more so this time. Yeah. I would like to forget that didn't really happen. I'm going to kind of view this as sort of like that episode, that season of Dallas where they killed off, who was it? Bobby
He's in the shower.
It was all just a dream the next year and it's all okay. And everything's good. Everything's fine. I'm going to do that instead. So yeah, I'm going to disassociate.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
Before you get all the way.
In all seriousness, though, whenever you go into Starkville, whenever you go in to play a Mike Leach coached team and you're without your starting quarterback, and so you have a backup quarterback and you run him for 2 series and then you pull him to put in the other guy and he looks great, and then you don't go back to the number 2 guy because this other guy just kind of took over the job during the game, but you didn't let him have it beforehand during all week during practice. I've never seen a team be successful with confusion at the quarterback position when you can't be sure who's going to play quarterback. And with KJ Jefferson out because of concussion protocol last week, Arkansas looked really lost. Still, the 40-17 was not as wide as it may seem. It was a closer, Arkansas had opportunities to get back in that game is what I'm saying. And they failed those. So injuries are absolutely sideswiping Arkansas this season, but it's the SEC. That happens. Get over it. It's where the big boys play.
So you sound a little bit like me coming out of Starkville last week, and I think that it would be safe to say that this was the worst game Arkansas has played this year. Is that fair, or was that Alabama?
I truly think that Alabama or the Missouri State win was. Arkansas's put in some really duds of performances the last 4 weeks. Mississippi State, that was a dud. Didn't play our best against A&M and should have won that game. Sorry, but didn't.
You had your opportunities, absolutely.
Outside of the third quarter against Alabama, we look like a peewee football team. And then for 3.5 quarters against Missouri State, we look like we shouldn't be ranked in the top 25 of the FCS poll. So, I mean, so far it's been quite a schizophrenic season. A lot of that is due to injuries on defense, and then whenever you get your starting quarterback injured as well, and you're relying on him so much, that's a big hit. So, not the season a lot of Razorback fans would have expected, which is why they're calling for somebody's head, but not Sam Pittman because we like him, but that Kendall Browse guy, maybe that Barry Odom guy, because the Barry Odom defensive that has befuddled the SEC for the last 3 years. Suddenly everybody thinks he's forgotten how to coach. So I don't know. A little adversity, and boy, do your boo birds get loud. But I saw something this week, and I think we should really pay more attention to that. Just because people want to have a loud voice doesn't mean they have the correct voice. So let them scream, let them go nuts. One day they'll learn to read and shut up.
Hey, everybody with an ISP is smarter than everybody paid to coach. I can tell you that right now.
The fear of getting punched in the face, when that's taken away and you can sit behind a keyboard, people will say whatever they want.
Well, you've seen it firsthand in College Station this week because it was another weekend of what could have been. Because in all rights, if you go to Alabama, you're not playing Bryce Young, you're playing their backup quarterback. You force Alabama into 4 turnovers, and you have a chance on the 2-yard line to win the game at the end of the game. You probably should win the game. And A&M didn't. The positives out of this weekend for A&M coming out of Alabama is you saw the potential of the freshmen and young players that we are running out there who were able to stand toe to toe with Alabama in Tuscaloosa, which is a big deal because playing in Tuscaloosa is hard because, as you'll find out probably next year, Jim, you're not just playing Alabama, you're not just coaching against Nick Saban, you're also coaching against the SEC and the entire umpiring crew who might decide, that pass interference doesn't exist anymore for a quarter at a time, or that Alabama's never held at all, ever. Like an entire game worth of not holding. It's almost impossible to do, but somehow it happened. That's not why A&M lost, though. A&M lost because they didn't execute on a final play that they should have played with. And when you're playing the amount of young guys that you're playing and you're having the offensive struggles that you're having, this is what's going to happen. I am hopeful for the rest of the season. I'm very happy that we're not playing anybody this week because if we were, we on our third quarterback, because there are rumors afoot that Haynes King, something's wrong with his leg. And I've heard everything from broken ankle to sprained ankle to turf toe. I'm leaning towards it actually being turf toe. Maybe he has a broken rib. Maybe he played with a broken rib through most of that game. Maybe he didn't. Tough kid. Anyway. Enough of our sob stories. Let's talk to the happy guy up there, Mr. Christopher.
Well, you used the word execution, and that's exactly what happened at the Cotton Bowl. You'll see that I am keeping it classy today with my background. I made Andy laugh. That's a big deal. I'm enjoying this more than I usually enjoy things. I try to immediately get into this sort of like, compassionate for the, first of all, I have no OU friends, and that's intentional. It was nice to be on the other end of this. We saw, I think, dominant in all phases of the game, to the point that in the fourth quarter, they actually skipped the second string and went to the third string, including seeing, I think his name is Charles White or something like that, playing quarterback. Very nice to see that. And nice to see what the offense can do when you scheme for Quinn Ewers. That was a big thing where there was a couple of interesting plays I saw that I'd not seen before, tight end screens done differently than how I've seen it. And I saw him step in the pocket, move around, and make some plays. So it was nice to see that. It was nice to get a glimmer of what could be. And, I know we're going to talk about this week coming up, but this week seems, I'm starting to feel confident. How about that? No, it was great. It was hook 'em. That's all I can say.
I don't know that I've ever seen you at a loss for words, and that's probably as close as I've come.
Look, I'll say this: this was the first game that we actually pulled up the big Darth Vader TV on the back patio. We had Whitfield's barbecue, which Scott, I think you've had with us. Casey Studdard's.
Yeah, that's amazing.
National champion good. Casey Studdard's barbecue joint. It was a perfect burnt orange day for sure.
The barbecue joint's good when you have to walk across the parking lot to the grocery store to get your drinks.
That's right.
Seriously, but seriously, we do one thing. We do barbecue. Here it is. Eat it, and you're like, this is great. Yeah, Jim, it had to feel great though. Because it's your big rivalry, right? You come in all week, your insides are doing this, your intestines are twisting around. And then look at the score behind you. That's
well, and then to sort of go 3 and out on the first possession, I got a very okay, well, here we go again. And I didn't have an Astros game to distract me because they were in the middle of that 10 game layoff between DS.
Here's your reward. Here's your reward for winning the division, guys. Sit around for 10 days.
Russ.
Yeah, it's really hurting them seeing how they're 2 up in the series. It's killing them right now.
Fair, but no, it was good. It was, those of you from Texas know it's not even just a rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma at a football level. There's a rivalry with them at a state level. I just hate them so much. At Whitfield, you have, I put the OU Sooners up there with Al Qaeda and the Texas Rangers as far as groups of people I hate the most. And, Scott, we talked a little bit about Whitfield's barbecue. In Oklahoma, they barbecue bologna. That's all you need to know.
And meth.
That's true. And they kind of taste the same. The The bologna is more filling, but the meth will keep you up for days.
At least it's a better ride too. Yeah, we are definitely happy down here on the 40 acres for sure.
I mean, that kind of brings us to next thing I want to talk about. It's week 7 of the college football season, and it's the mathematical, if unofficial, midway point of the college football season. I think for all three of our teams, things are not going quite as we expected. Couple bad, some good. I can sum up my thoughts on A&M football with the following lyric. And I seem to have a thing with throwing lyrics into the show when I host, but A&M's first half can be summed up with, I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain because it's the only thing that's real. And you have to imagine that in the most Johnny Cash about to die voice ever. Trent Reznor's too happy for the version I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, it's, Johnny Cash had that about a man coming to the end of his life, having been fulfilled and having things left behind and dying there with his wife in his last days. But no, let's relate that to football. I get it. No, okay, that's kind of equivalent.
You could potentially be talking about Jimbo Fisher with that exact same statement.
It's really kind of funny that you talk about that though, Andy, and I will not act like this is an accident because you did mention beforehand, hey, think about song lyrics. So I will say that for those out there who didn't know, we do a little pre-show prep work. We're not just winging.
Yeah.
And so there's two things. I think after leaving Starkville, in another Johnny Cash fashion, who, by the way, was born in Arkansas. Thank you very much. I would have to think of Sunday morning coming down when the Razorbacks woke up Sunday morning, there's no way they could hold their head that didn't hurt.
Hey,
but I will say, I think there's the fine lyricist Ray Wiley Hubbard from Texas wrote a song called Mother Blues. And I think this sums up how every Arkansas fan was feeling coming into the year, thinking we had it all figured out versus the reality. So there I was, boys, at 21 years old, I had it all. A fine stripper girlfriend and a gold top Les Paul. The future, it looked so promising. But there were dark clouds on the horizon. She was a beautiful girl, but she liked to drink tequila, which is kind of the same as getting a concussion on your main quarterback, right? That's sort of the same. But she liked to drink tequila, and whoa, that ain't all. I come home 4 or 5 times. She had done pawned my Les Paul. That's kind of where we're at right now as a program. We thought we had the stripper girlfriend and it all figured out at 21. And we were playing a hot guitar, guys. 2 injuries in the secondary and 1 to the quarterback. And suddenly our guitar's in the pawn shop and we're trying to figure out what the is going on.
Well, I have a song and I'll play the first few bars because it's a little bit different vibe. I'd like to dedicate this to Steve Sarkisian. Wrong one. You got the touch. That's right. He's got the touch. I believe in it. I'm going Transformers, the movies. You guys stand Bush. He is the Rodimus Prime of Longhorn coaches.
If I had to guess, it was actually going to be that or You're the Best Around from Crumb.
Oh, yeah. I was really – actually, those were the two that were like, man, I don't know. I don't want to give season 5 of Cobra Kai any accidental pub, so that's where we went. Yeah, I mean, look, things are better. I knew the team would be good, but they have avoided the shoot themselves in the foot outside of the Texas Tech game. But really and truly, I think Texas Tech just had a really good plan, and they played a very un-Texas Tech game in that game where they wanted to grind you. I mean, they had 12-minute drives. Andy, you've watched Tech enough to know they sometimes don't have 12 minutes of possession in an entire game. So. Sure. No, I feel like the program is in the right direction. I feel like I don't know. I've listened to 3 coaches talk about alignment or whatever version of that word they want to use, but I feel like Sarkisian. I feel like he's still in process over product mode, and I kind of really dig that. So
now the counter to that, and I know it is about your team and not necessarily about who you're playing, but a lot of that good feeling is based on an Oklahoma team that is probably turning out to be the worst Oklahoma team in most of our memories, probably back to the John Blake days. early Bob Stoops days where they couldn't get out of their own way. How much of your optimism for the rest of the season is based on what Texas is doing versus what the circumstances of their schedule have been so far?
Well, no, I think that's a fair point. And obviously beating Oklahoma for the reasons I said before, it's just the same reason why I like when we beat Al-Qaeda. It's important and it's good for America. But what I would say is, yeah, you obviously look, the Big 12 is a weaker conference, but I think they dominated a West Virginia team that a lot of people thought was going to play better. I don't like to go back to the whole Alabama thing, but they play within three points of Alabama with their backup quarterback. I don't think that they could walk into the SEC tomorrow and be anything probably more than a 500 team in conference, but you wouldn't have said that last year.
Oh, no. And I'm not asking you to compare yourself to an SEC team or play that schedule. I'm talking about your optimism for the rest of the season, knowing that you have better teams coming up than what you've played outside of Alabama in OSU, in TCU, maybe not Baylor. Iowa State looks like they've taken a step back. Kansas, even with their backup quarterback, looks pretty salty, and y'all have to go to Lawrence.
Can I add also that after West Virginia beat Baylor last night, which I know made Jim happy, there's nobody in the Big 12 with a losing record now. I mean, the worst team is 3-3. The best team is 5-0 or whatever. There's a lot of parity in the Big 12, and I don't think you can overstep that. There's not a huge gap, like there used to be. You'd have your Nebraska and Oklahoma up here, and then the terrible teams down here. But that's really changed, especially this. Well, I'm talking way back when it was Big 8.
Nebraska won way more Big 12 game. I mean, Texas won way more Big 12 conference championships.
No, I'm sorry. I went way back in history. I was thinking
James
about when
Brown?
I was a little
That doesn't ring a bell.
I was talking about a little kid whenever I was growing up, and
y'all have won 3 Big 12 championships.
I mean, it's Nebraska won.
I'll look it up, but it's about the same.
I think it's. Oh, look at that's weird. When I get fisheye.
Go look at Big 8. I'm talking old days.
Okay, but Texas Tech won 15 border conference championships. Who cares?
The point I'm trying to make is that the Big 12 has better parity now than at any point in its time. And for Texas to be at the top of that level right now, at the top of that parity list, is pretty freaking cool considering where you were the last few years when your song lyrics would have been "Another is Waiting" by the Avett Brothers because another coach was waiting. You've seen to have things figured out.
Definitely agree with that. My goals, like I don't know that we're competing for the Big 12 championship necessarily because of the two teams.
That's what I was kind of getting at.
But like I think we're going to be in a bowl game, which again is
all the
about this is like steps to keep this recruiting thing rolling. And I think you cannot deny that there have been steps taken, and I do think we at least get 2 more wins, right, to get to the Big 12 to get to a bowl game, and that's the floor, I think, and I'm happy with that.
All right, let's turn it to Fayetteville. Scott, what's your outlook for the rest of the season?
I think a lot hinges on this week. I'll be completely honest. I think this game with BYU in Utah at 2:30 on ESPN Saturday. I think that's going to tell you a lot. Is Arkansas in full man the lifeboats mode at 3-4 going into next week, or 4-3 feels a little bit better with some of the teams like that we have on the horizon? I mean, look, when I look at Missouri, Auburn, LSU, those are gettable teams. I believe Ole Miss is also in the schedule. I don't know, although that's usually a shootout. So those games are gettable. But if you can beat BYU and still take care of Liberty out of conference, an 8-4 season is not out of the realm of possibility, and that'll look successful for Arkansas for this year. Maybe not as successful as we hoped, but it'll still, we went the wrong direction and we saved it. So I think there's a lot on the line for Arkansas this week. And it's been a crazy year, in my opinion, in college football.
I have a question for Andy. We all can agree on this show that Jimbo's not going anywhere for 3 more years at a minimum, right?
Probably more than that, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, at a minimum. What is the floor for A&M as far as how will you feel like the year is successful, knowing that this year is not going to impact recruiting? It's not going to impact your coaching staff. What's the floor that you guys will accept as a fan base?
Oh, well, except what the fan base, our gaggling band of idiots on the internet gave up when we lost to what was that team?
Appalachian
State. Thank you for that, Scott. I was not going to struggle to come up with that name, but I
didn't have to.
Appreciate you plunging in. I think that the reality here's the problem. We are as desperate in College Station to win something of significance in football as Georgia was last year to win the national championship, because their drought of, 50 years, that's cute because we won the last national championship our program won in 1939. Even with the made up ones between 1939 and like 1975, that's still our last one. So we are desperate to see things that aren't there sometimes, to hope against hope, and to pretend that everything is going to be perfect every year. And when we as a fan base, get faced with any adversity at all, we crumble like idiots a lot of times. And some of it is deserved. Our offense has been crap this year. And if you look at it statistically, it hasn't been great for about a year and a half. There are some legitimate complaints about Jimbo Fisher. But from a program building standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, and from the BB's standpoint that we reference on this show a lot, there is nobody better suited for that job than Jimbo Fisher. Does he need to change the way he approaches his offense? Does he need to give up play calling? Probably. I don't even think you need a new offense. I think you need somebody else to pay attention to it and see things that he's not doing right now and let him focus on the big picture. That's going to be the difference. As far as to your direct question, Jim, we could still go 9-3 and then have a bowl game to get us to 10 wins. That's the goal right now. That's what it has to be. If we end up at 8-4 in the regular season, that's disappointing. It's not the end of the world, because you can still say, look, we played all those guys we got out of that number one recruiting class. Every one of them played, except for a couple of offensive linemen who need to put on weight. Every one of them played. Every one of them played in big games. You saw it this week against Alabama. We played something like 22 freshmen or redshirt freshmen in that game in Tuscaloosa, giving them the ball. The next step for him is going to be getting off the pot on the quarterback situation. And that's either I'm full bore with Haynes King. He's my guy because Max Johnson is out for the year, or at least out until the LSU game after Thanksgiving. Or you're going to give the ball to Connor Wegman and say, look, you're the 5-star, you're the future. We're going to get you some experience now to build on for next year. If he's just going for goodwill because he was worried about his job, Connor Wegman's going to be starting in South Carolina next week, 2 weeks. If Haynes King is healthy, Jimbo being Jimbo, he still starts because he's still playing for this season. And I think that's a big distinction. We have to hold on to our recruiting class. That's the big coming out of this now. We've got some guys that we need to pick up and Jimbo recruits. So to answer your question, 8-4 is going to feel hugely disappointing, but it's not the end of the world for us. 9-3 at this point would be better.
Okay. I did see a stat this week that that through this point in their careers at A&M, Kevin Sumlin, his win-loss total was exactly the same of what Jimbo Fisher's is right now. So I can understand the frustration by A&M fans, even though Sumlin, started off better than he finished, obviously. But you were hoping for that amount that you're paying Jimbo, you were hoping for better results for sure.
Historically, we've got a comp in Jackie Sherrill, who was hired, I think, as the first $1 million a year coach, brought to College Station from Pitt. A lot of hype around him in his first 3 seasons. I think were 5-7, 6-5, 6-5, that or 5-6, 6-5, 6-5, something like that. And there was a lot of heat around him. And then it clicked because the recruiting was going well and he started getting his players in position. And I think what you're seeing this year is a testament to, even in year 5, the things that Fisher had to put in place, knowing that first recruiting class would just, let's get some guys, I don't care who they are at this point, and start building your culture. And if we were, I was thinking about this actually earlier, if we were in 1982 or 1992 versus 2022, nobody would think Jimbo Fisher is in a hot seat type of place,
Right.
even laid up. The reality is, if you're not making the college football playoffs now, your coach is in trouble. And I don't know if that's fair, because I don't think long-term that works for anybody that isn't Alabama or Ohio State or maybe Texas. But the true blue bloods of the sport, Michigan, you've got to allow the coach to build his program. And short of egregious wins or criminal activity, you can't keep cutting coaches at year 3, year 2, year 1, year 4, and expect that it's going to get any better, because that next coach has the same battles that they're going to keep facing. And sure, you hit lightning in a bottle. You hit lightning in a bottle every now and then with a guy, but not everybody's going to come in and be Bob Stoops.
You know what you also, Andy, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you also can't give a big extension to a guy after his first year because he won with last year's recruits who are now seniors, and now all of a sudden, and then you see how often have we heard that story? So it's a very knee-jerk sport right now.
I think you've got the window reduced with the transfer portal. Now it means that your means to fix things in 82 and the spotlight on you was definitely less, because there was one college football game that could be seen every week, and you didn't have any possibility to get anybody to transfer in. But now between the transfer portal and 100 games on every weekend, everybody knows your situation. That window is drastically reduced.
Right. And I'm not even saying Jimbo's in the same boat, but, and I hate agreeing with Mac Brown, but was it Frank Solich that was fired from Nebraska after winning 9 games for 3 or 4 years in a row? Yeah. Only won 9 games.
Meet Dale.
Yeah, but that's Mac Brown was dead on. How are you getting rid of a guy who is graduating his players, who has cleaned up the program and gotten rid of all of Tom's extracurricular students, and still winning 9 games and still being competitive and all? It's the shift of what college football has become versus what we wanted it to be. I don't like it. Well,
forgive me for forgetting, but he said the same thing about the Aggie coach that followed Jackie Sherrill. He got fired, I think, after
R.C. Slocum.
Yeah. He got fired after going, he was pretty consistent.
He got fired after going 6-6, and he got that. We don't have time for that conversation on this show. I wanted to get into Heisman hopeful, since we're middle of the year, and I don't think any of our team really has a guy that's on this list, but I think there's some commonly known favorites in CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams out in USC. Who are you guys looking at because this is the time where this award starts solidifying. You're going to see the signature wins come out. And I'll start. I'll give you one, because this weekend could be a signature win for Hendon Hooker in Tennessee. If the Tenors can beat Alabama in Knoxville with game day there, and Hendon Hooker has a game, I think he's right there with Stroud at the top of the list.
Scott, you want to go first? You go first, Scott, if you want.
Yeah, so look, my dark horse, I think it's CJ Stroud's to lose. But you are correct. If Hooker has a great weekend against Alabama, that's something that people are going to pay attention to. The other person, if his team can keep winning, who has slid his name into this conversation, and in my opinion, has probably played best, is Max Duggan, the quarterback from TCU. I think the numbers he's put up and the record that he's led the Horned Frogs to is a shock. And if he would have gotten some preseason hype, I think the guy would be top 3 right now. What he's doing on paper, and what he's doing each weekend on the field, I should say, what he's doing each weekend on the field is increasing his stats on paper, where his name is really getting thrown in the mix. And also, what's his name? Dorian Green Thompson or whatever, the quarterback out at UCLA. Yes, his game.
Robinson.
Yeah, his games are played at 10 o'clock at night, but he's putting up good stats at 10 o'clock at night. So I think where he's at is going to hurt him more than anything. Gee, he wishes he was a Big Ten team this year. Wouldn't that be interesting, though, to see all these great offenses from USC and UCLA up against the defensives of Iowa and Illinois, who played to a staggering 9-6 win this past weekend?
It'll be a thing. Jim, what about you?
Well, you want to go dark horse, right? That's the point. And obviously, it's not a running back award anymore, but I'd put Bijan Robinson on that list if we still consider running backs, which they don't. I don't know. You have to give some love to Jalen Daniels out of Kansas. Just the very fact that how cool would it be to have a guy from Kansas invited to New York? What a great story that would be. And he's completely, I think the fluke is, we can't call it a fluke anymore. They've won 4 games? I mean, it's, I think they're for real. And I would love the idea of seeing, I don't know. I think it'd be cool to see somebody from Kansas invited to New York, but I also would invite Bijan Robinson.
Unfortunately, I think Daniels is out for a while. He's got a grade 3 sprain of his shoulder, or separation of his shoulder. Although the backup is the one who put up all the points last week against TCU in that game. So the offense continues to roll.
I'm still not getting any information on Kansas apparently, but well, yeah, then I would say Bijan Robinson should be on the list.
All right.
He's the best.
And I think Jim makes
very Texas answer of you.
He's the best running back in the country.
Jim makes a point. I mean, Bijan Robinson and probably Blake Corum as a running back up in Michigan are the two biggest running back names that I'm hearing this year. Of course, it has become more of a quarterback award, to Jim's point, but legitimate running backs, I'd take them on my team any day.
I don't think we're talking about building a team, and I do agree that the quarterbacks in college football get the love that they're going to get, but I don't know that Robinson has put up the stats consistently with those eye-popping numbers, and that's why the quarterbacks are valued right now. You can stick your tongue out at me all you want. Bijan Robinson is a first-round draft pick, and for a running back in 2022, that's saying something because the NFL doesn't value running backs. So somebody's going to give him
Jerry Jones. Am I right?
Hopefully for you, or my fantasy team, whichever works first. But I just don't know that he's put up the stats. But at your pick, we're going to stick with it. Let's get in. We're getting close to the end of time here, so let's talk a little bit about what this upcoming week is. I will start. A&M is playing BYE, which I'm really happy about. It doesn't matter who we throw out at quarterback because we are not going to lose.
Brigham Young Enterprise. What? Okay.
Don't worry about it. But Arkansas is playing BYU, which is probably a slightly higher step up in competition. What do you got to look forward to, Scott?
Well, with you guys having the off week, I do wish all the Yell leaders the best of luck beating off this weekend. However, pig. Going to Provo, Utah, or wherever the hell in Utah we're going to wind up at, that is not exactly an easy trick. Look, Notre Dame just beat them, but losing to Notre Dame at Notre Dame is not exactly a black mark on your resume because you've got Jesus in the background against you and stuff. So I mean and for a bunch of Mormons that must have been a shock. Wow, there really is Jesus in America. There he is in statue form. But this week, the humor that moves into Utah is a little bit more lowbrow, and it's good that Coors Light is sold west of the Rockies because I'm pretty sure that the Razorback fans coming over will drink plenty of good cold beer, Coors Light cold beer, and we'll
Scott, the Blue Laws of Utah are actually it's tough. I hope you get all your Hope you.
No, we're going to pick it as they're driving across. They're going to pick it up in Colorado and take it.
Brewery, which is a great microbrew in Utah, but
yeah, but they shut down
the Polygamy Porter.
Look, man, these are Arkansas fans. Okay, these are guys that have posters, full life-size posters of John Daly smoking a cigarette on their wall. So they ain't stopping in no microbrewery in Utah.
Are you saying Jerry Reed's leading the convoy at the Provo?
Yeah. You got the big old Basset Hound sitting in the seat beside him, Clyde or whatever that guy's name was. Flash. That was
Flash was
Coltrane.
Yeah,
Roscoe P. Coltrane had Flash.
Look, I hope you both get Diablo sandwiches and Dr. Peppers, but we need to move on. Pick a score.
I love Diablo sandwiches and Dr. Peppers and Coors Light.
Score. Who's winning? Who's winning your game, Scott?
We are.
Okay.
Close.
Go with that. All right, let's go to Austin, Texas again, because it doesn't appear Texas plays any road games this year. Iowa State.
Texas 38, Iowa State 7.
Iowa State is definitely in a rebuilding mode. Everybody's gone. I think their coach, whose name escapes me right now, might have missed his window.
Matt Campbell.
Yeah, to move on to a better job. But he seems really happy in Iowa State. I will say, even with lesser talent, Iowa State has played Texas very well over the last decade. record notwithstanding, it's always been kind of a closer game than it probably should have been in a number of years. Is there anything that Texas needs to watch out for this year or this week with Iowa State?
Eating their own cheese. They cannot become the program again that thinks you can roll the helmet out and thinks you win. I don't think that's going to happen with the culture that they're building, but that's 100% always going to be Texas's downfall, is that they believe that because there's a Longhorn on the helmet, that's enough to win. And that's it.
In Arkansas, that's called sniffing your own farts, but they do that as a recreation. So
just so we're clear, my farts are amazing. I'm saying. Yeah, but Jim, I think that's so smart, and I think you're spot on, because after winning 49-0 over your arch rival, and then you play Iowa State the next week, kind of tough to get up for.
I think especially if you're looking at bowl eligibility, this might be the last true gimme on the schedule. So
yeah, y'all are bowl eligible. Don't worry about it. All right, one last question before we wrap up today. On a scale of John Blake to Barry Switzer, how much trouble is Brent Venables in?
Okay, I'm going to take this.
And I will add to that before you answer, Jim. Oklahoma has fired 5 coaches in their history who coached one season, the most recent being Howard Schnellenberger.
I think they're in trouble. I think that it's the confluence of reaching this dip after Lincoln Riley left and took all those players with him, with the prospect of the SEC coming, meaning that Texas recruits will get to play more home games, which used to be the big selling point. If you're OU, come to us, you can still play half your road games in Texas. You can't do that anymore. I think they're going to be in the desert for a while.
Scott?
Brent Venables' name was tossed around for a long time about becoming a head coach. His name popped up in so many searches until he landed this job. Jim's right. Lincoln Riley took a bunch of players and left. And because we haven't mentioned his name yet, Spencer Rattler also left for South Carolina. I think the departures and the I'm trying to change the culture argument that Brent Venables can probably make buys him another year. I don't see him being fired this year. His name was too hot coming into the year. There's too much, there's too many eyes on it. So I don't think Venables, it's getting hot. Okay. Don't get me wrong. It's warming up, but I don't think he gets fired this year.
All right. On that note, we're going to wrap up for this week. That giddy guy up there is Jim. That hopeful guy down there is Scott. And me, I'm Andy, and I'm just pleased that A&M cannot lose a game this weekend. This is Y'all Fight Sooie.
Beat off!
Y'all Fight Sooie is part of the Let's Get To network. Y'all Fight Sooie is produced by Twitchy Dolphin Media.